I'll say it again for camera number 3. If you cannot hear me clearly due to the wind, you should go ahead and check out the YouTube channel where it will be uploaded. So we're going to be doing some very light reading. And apologies for the delay. And had I shown up earlier, the poppies would have been in full bloom. Okay, so Marine Corps publication, I don't know, that's the title of it there. PCN 142000160, MCD P7, and this is on learning. It was published on the 20th of February 2020 by the Department of the Navy, Headquarters, Marine Corps, Washington, D.C. Forward. The purpose of this publication is to describe the Marine Corps' learning philosophy, explaining why learning is critical, important to the profession of arms. You hear me talking? If you don't like it, well, move along, nothing to see here, right? Let me proceed. While many of the concepts of this publication have been passed on by Marine leaders throughout our history, this publication seeks to formalize them and provide aspirational goals. Learning is an institutional priority and a professional expectation for all Marines. This mentality is key to the Marine Corps becoming a more effective learning machine. Shall I go on? Your response? Sir, yes, sir. The most important factor in this philosophy is the importance of continuous learning throughout our careers for warfighting. Continuous learning is essential to maneuver warfare because it enables Marines to quickly recognize changing conditions in the battle space, adapt, and make timely decisions against a thinking enemy. These skills required in war must be learned, developed, and honed over time. If neglected, they quickly atrophy. Marines leverage the art and science of learning technologies and learning environments that reflect the changing operational environment to tailor learning and provide each other with constructive feedback. Excuse me. Got a dry mouth here. The wettest dry mouth you can imagine. Let me take a sip of this. I literally have camera number 1 strapped to my back, so hopefully you can see all those pretty orange flowers and the sunset. Let me go on. Leaders hold Marines to high professional standards of performance, conduct, and discipline. To include learning. As Marines rise in rank and position, continuous learning and development and developing our professional skills are a professional expectation. We must make the most of every learning opportunity, fostering our subordinates' learning while continuing our own. Continuous learning is important to Marines because of the fundamental nature of war, and its ever-changing character. The nature of war carries a combination of fear, uncertainty, ambiguity, chance, horror, and above all, friction that Marines must prepare to encounter. Marines must seek out education and training opportunities that simulate these conditions. I'll read out that sentence again. Marines must seek out education and training opportunities that simulate these conditions. We must train how we fight. As Marines, we must understand how important learning is and be committed to the principles laid out in this publication. Our professional responsibility as Marines is to engage in continuous learning so that we may best support our fellow Marines, our Corps, and our nation. That's just a foreword by a D.H. Berger, General of the U.S. Marine Corps, Commandant. Wow. During my active time, my Commandant was Mad Dog Mattis. So again, publication control number 142000160, and this was officially published by Marine Corps, and I asked the higher ups at the time, a month or two ago, whether or not it was okay for me to do this. I was informed that there is no classified information, so I was enthusiastically told to proceed at my leisure regarding reading this. All right, so we're about to begin this. Again, this is a publication that was put out by the Marine Corps on learning on February 20th of this year. So chapter 1, the nature of learning. I said it again and I'll say it again. If you cannot hear me clearly due to the wind, feel free to check out Kaino the Concerned Citizen on YouTube. I will be uploading cameras 1 through 3. Yeah, I'll see what I can do about just taking clips of all of them, I guess. All right, let's proceed. Chapter 1, the nature of learning. As a lifetime serial learner, I have found that ordinary people can do the extraordinary who are committed to experimental learning, are intellectually curious, and possess an unquenchable desire to acquire new knowledge. This may be our only advantage in the future fight. It's a quote by Lorna M. Mahlock. What we did isn't as important to, what we didn't, let me read that sentence again. It's a quote by Alfred M. Gray. What you did isn't as important as what you were thinking. I like that one. The most important 6 inches on the battlefield is between your ears. That's a quote by James N. Mattis. All right. First page of chapter 1, the nature of learning. I guess it's page 1-3. Again, check out that beautiful, magnificent scene. Camera 1. let me show you a 360 right there. And did we miss this spot? And again, battery on camera 1 is low, so it's probably dead. We still rolling? Yeah, it's dead. Ah. Let's proceed. I guess I'm just gonna swap it out with this one. On every new page. Don't worry. We'll change up the written material so it's not so dry and more applicable to a wider audience. Warfighting is the most complex, challenging, violent, and dynamic human endeavor. The Marine Corps, as the nation's force and readiness, must have the versatility and flexibility to effectively fight and succeed in any situation and at any intensity across the full spectrum of conflict, whenever the nation calls. May I add the situation, whatever the situation calls for. Consider the intensity. To meet these demands, it is critical that Marines recognize that learning has a direct impact on warfighting. Marines who understand the key learning principles and continuously seek opportunities to develop knowledge, skills, and the proper attitudes throughout their careers will develop wisdom that enables success in battle. As Marines, we pass on our wisdom and experiences to the next generation of Marines. For the Marine Corps to remain the United States force in readiness, it is critical that every Marine strengthen and value learning in all facets of Marine Corps culture, learning environments, and leadership development. Learning is a professional responsibility for all Marines at all levels. Marines must develop the habit of continuous learning early in their careers to set the conditions for success in increasing levels of responsibility. I will not be reading the little pictures and diagrams and their captions. We'll move on to the next page. 1-4. Learning and competence. Learning is developing knowledge, skills, and attitudes through study, experience, or instruction. It is a never-ending progression that includes understanding why something is important, the intent of learning. Learning is much more than gathering information or reciting facts. It includes cognitive, physical, social, emotional, ethical, and cultural components. Learning, hang on, bear with me here. I'm gonna tighten this up a little. If necessary, we'll have to tuck it in. Let me start that sentence over. Bogey, 9 o'clock, 2 bogeys. All right, we got another on our 9. We got a bird on our 3. Another on our 2. Hang on, focus. Learning is much more than gathering information. Oh, I read that one, but I'll finish it. Learning is much more than gathering information or reciting facts. It includes cognitive, physical, social, emotional, ethical, and cultural components. Learning occurs in formal settings, example, a schoolhouse or training exercise, and informal settings, such as social, experimental, self-directed, and other ways outside of the classroom. The developing knowledge, skills, and attitudes interact to influence how Marines think, respond, and act. Learning encompasses both training and education, which are equally important and complementary. A simple explanation of the differences between training and education is that training prepares Marines to deal with the known factors of war, example, the importance of good marksmanship, while education prepares Marines to deal with the unknown factors, example, effective decision-making in changing circumstances. Training and education are accomplished in different ways, but they are both required working together to instill the learning that results in readiness and effectiveness. Apologies if my sentences are not flowing. This is kind of a spontaneous thing I decided to do based on, my thought process and how things are unfolding. I'm kind of just making it up as I go. All right. The complexity of the modern battlefield and increasing rate of change requires a highly educated force. While different education and training are inextricably linked. Education denotes study and intellectual development. Training is primarily learning by doing. We will not train without, turning the page, presence of education. We must educate without the complementary execution of well-received training. Marines must always seek better ways to learn throughout the entire continuum of training and education. Throughout this publication, let me flip it around for you. We still rolling? Steady now. Marines continuously learn to be ready for the constantly changing. Let me do this paragraph. Again, apologies. It's just a spontaneous thing I decided to do. Let me give you that angle right there. How's it looking? Let me tighten it up a little more. My perception, yours is probably different. Marines must always seek better ways to learn throughout the entire continuum of training and education. Throughout this publication, the term learning is emphasized. Training and education are used when specifically referring to one or the other. Learning is the overall intended outcome of both training and education. I'm gonna have to slow down a little. As in reading for dummies. Marines continuously learn to be ready for the constantly changing and increasing demands of warfare and the range of missions. As Marine Corps in doctrinal publication MCDP 6 Command and Control explains, we earn the trust of others by demonstrating competence, a sense of responsibility, loyalty, and self-discipline. Competence is having sufficient knowledge, judgment, and skills to perform a particular duty, job, or function. Marines improve competencies through formal and informal learning opportunities that develop the required knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Marines learn to address complex problems and develop teamwork wherever they may be, unless it's unethical or immoral or in violation of any statutes or orders, regulations, or those last 15 words or so were just me. Let me focus. Marines learn to address complex problems and develop teamwork wherever they may be, whether in garrison, deployed, or in formal learning centers. Learning enables Marines to think critically, develop judgment, and cultivate a bias for action without waiting to be told what to do. A Marine with knowledge and skills who lacks judgment requires close supervision. Do not put him in a sober living home where there is alcohol. Again, disregard that last sentence. That was just my commentary. I'll just try to stick strictly to what I'm trying to read. Again, I'm reading from a publication put out by the Marine Corps on February 20th of 2020, titled Learning. And I guess it would be publication number PCN 14200001600. Hopefully I didn't add an extra zero. Page 1-5. Our Marine Corps ethos apologies, I'm just hopefully that's better, and disregard the my nonsense and the wind. The camera is currently facing southeast at the northern Los Angeles County line. That's Kern County. Let's proceed. All right, self, proceed. Our Marine Corps ethos demands competence, responsibility, loyalty, and self-discipline as military professionals charged with the defense of the nation. I will add, our communities. Learning prepares Marines to exercise initiative within the commander's intent, constantly seeking to improve, develop mental agility, and deal with changing situations. Page 1-6. The role of learning in warfighting. Maneuver warfare requires intelligent leaders at all levels who possess a bias for intelligent action. Success in warfare depends on Marines developing an intellectual edge to accurately recognize cues, quickly make sense of information, and respond effectively. This intellectual edge is based on developed knowledge and experience that allows Marines to shape conditions and events to their advantage. Developing fundamental cognitive competencies such as problem framing, mental imaging, critical thinking, analysis, synthesis, reasoning, and problem solving enables Marines to make effective decisions more quickly in time-constrained operational environments when they often have incomplete, inaccurate, or even contradictory information. A central tenet of maneuver warfare is attacking the enemy's ability to make decisions and to shift the mental aspects of warfare to the Marines' advantage. In short, Marines develop an intellectual edge by developing cognitive skills and competencies that enable them to move through the observe, orient, decide, and act cycle, often referred to as the OODA loop, more quickly and effectively than the enemy. The warfighter who recognizes what is happening, adapts to the situation, and then makes effective decisions in the shortest amount of time will typically have an advantage. The OODA, I probably messed up the previous sentence. The OODA loop decision-making cycle is even more important in preparation for future conflicts because as new technologies emerge, the rate of change will continue to increase. Again, apologies. Sooner or later, it'll start flowing. Again, that last sentence was just commentary by yours truly, kind of the concerned citizen. I'd like to go ahead and take the opportunity to apologize for not getting off my rear end, arse earlier, and doing this earlier when there was no wind and the sun was directly overhead, and these California poppies were in full bloom. Therefore, Marines must continually improve their knowledge and skills by leveraging technology and never depend upon technology alone as the situation. Hear that, Rambo? Marines should observe page 1-7. Their environment to recognize key cues. Synthesize those cues to orient and quickly make sense of the information in order to decide and act. And then Marines will start the cycle again as they observe the effects of their actions. Excuse me. Importantly, action includes Marines effectively communicating decisions to their teams. Marines use skills such as critical thinking, reasoning, viewing situations from multiple perspectives and visualizing the battle space in nonlinear terms to determine the best course of action within operational and tactical time constraints. Through progressive learning and experience, Marines at all levels develop a bias for action enabled by adaptive, rapid decision making. The more Marines learn and exercise this bias for action, the better it becomes. Although war games or training exercises approximate the conditions of war, Marines cannot fully replicate the dangers, complexity, emotions, and friction of actual combat. Marines experience a variety of training situations that approximate combat situations so that learned experiences can be remembered and applied during the stresses and frictions of combat. Through both direct and indirect experiences, Marines develop a realistic appreciation for what is possible in combat and what is not. Flesh will yield. Again, I'd like to apologize for the side commentary. I will try to stick strictly to the script. Marines experience a variety of training situations that approximate combat conditions so that learned experiences can be remembered and applied during the stresses and friction of combat. Through both direct and indirect experiences, Marines develop a realistic appreciation for what is possible in combat and what is not. The following vignette, based upon a composite of Marines' experiences during Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom, illustrates the importance of learning through previous experiences and adapting to changing conditions. Again, I'd like to apologize for my out loud reading skills. I have no other choice but to improve, right? There's no way, absolutely no way I will get worse at that. Let me give you a north facing perspective. Looks nice with the sunset like that. Disregard any logies you may see on my this also serves to deter them from yelling nonsense as they're doing. Again, with the side commentary, let me focus here and proceed on page 1-8. I will not be reading I will because it seems to be important. It's actually shaded in. I will not be reading in the boxes that are not shaded in. I'd like to, again with the side commentary, I like to point out that I was in the Air Wing, the 3rd Marine Air Wing, Station Camp MCAS Miramar, Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, and I don't have any ground side experience, so what I'm about to read is something beyond my level of understanding, but I'm sure it's going to be very insightful. I did read A Band of Brothers as a child, way I just did that. Long before it was even a thought of being produced into a miniseries, and I have no doubt in my mind that's the truth. Okay, so page 1-8 of this publication put out by the Marine Corps titled Learning. And if you don't like the redundancy, well, I guess there's nothing to see here, huh? Nothing to see here. We could all just move along. Nice. I might just have to turn around and acquire more additions to a citation I clearly deserve. Visualize it now. Man cannot afford ticket, goes to jail for stepping on flowers. Let me just sit right here where there's a nice little mound right here. Just to give you a, well, it's not a mound. I guess I'll go back and sit on this ledge. I guess we're up to each one's $1,000. You would never know. I would never know. No, if I found myself walking through the desert at night and didn't stop to think, oh, there's flowers. There are flowers out there. All right. All right. Again, now we're doing northwest. Yeah, Dirtbag Marine. All about that. Another honky in the distance. What's that? What's that? What does it mean? You got to apply that. Imply what? I'll describe the feeling of one of these flowers, even though I'm not going to grab one right now. Velvety soft. You hear that? Truck, the engine, the bird. That tough guy. Now that local resident running his generator or motor of some kind. The other one over there honking his horn. It's obviously moving because it's moving. A Marine Infantry Company commander recognized in the first few days of an operation that the enemy was already anticipating and encountering the unit's tactics. After assessing the information about the enemy's actions from several of the foot mobile patrols, the commander concluded that the unit needed improved mobility and firepower to outmaneuver the enemy. The company commander spoke with the battalion commander and recommended attaching gun vehicles from the battalion's weapons company to work directly with the infantry company, providing a highly mobile force with increased firepower to augment the foot patrols. The company commander organized the company commander task organized a weapons company detachment to provide additional infantry for close-in operations in the area's constricted terrain. This created an entirely different tactical plan for the company based upon observing the enemy's behaviors, adapting and quickly learning from Marines' experiences. That means blood. The highly mobile elements of the company began to appear unexpectedly, surprising enemy units who believed they were attacking only foot mobile patrols. As the enemy attempted to adjust to the new Marine tactics, the company commander continued to learn and adapt, making adjustments accordingly. For example, when the enemy began trying to set for the vehicle-mounted elements, the enemy would instead encounter well-planned ambushes by foot mobile elements at critical junctions along their route of march. The company's mounted and foot mobile elements continued to appear at critical locations again and again, repeatedly catching the enemy off guard and defeating their tactics. From the perspective of the enemy, the infantry company had become an omniscient, and omnipresent Marine Corps unit, and the enemy ended all operations in the area. The actual situation was not Marine omnipresence, but rather an attentive and learning-focused Marine company who observed the enemy's behaviors, quickly learning to identify key cues and recognize patterns, and continuously develop new ways to adapt the company's tactics to outthink and overwhelm an enemy who failed to do the same. The company repeatedly put the enemy on the horns of a dilemma, convincing the enemy that success could not be achieved in the Marine company's area of operations. Sounds good to me. Page 1-9. Marines need to develop memory skills because Marines, as human beings, increasingly tend to digitally store and search for information rather than committing the information to short-term memory or long-term memory. Marines cannot always rely on technologies or on being able to digitally search for information during combat due to many reasons, such as time constraints, lack of network access, or the need to minimize electronic signatures. Therefore, Marines at all levels need to train their minds to memorize and recall important information, to reflect upon that knowledge, to develop understanding, and to frequently exercise those skills through training so that information can be recalled instinctively during combat. Key principles of learning. It must be a new section or chapter. Projected future challenges for the Marine Corps includes the potential for adversaries to achieve technological equivalence or superiority with the United States. Projected future challenges for the Marine Corps includes the potential for adversaries to achieve technological equivalence or superiority with the United States. That possibility, coupled with Marines' expeditionary nature, means that the Marine Corps must be a more lethal thinking force that fosters continuous personal and organizational learning based upon enduring principles. I will read this box that's not shaded in. Learning principles for Marines. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. Be ready and willing to learn. Understand why you are learning. Improve and receive, provide and receive constructive feedback. That implies a lot. Learning is purpose-driven to develop professional competence. There can only be one chief. Page 1-10. check this out. This is really happening. Another sunset. The first learning principle is know yourself and seek self-improvement. Might I add? I'm going to add. May God grant us all strength to do the right thing. Excuse me. A Marine's mindset, values, ethics, and experiences impact his or her learning, decisions, and actions. Character, will, and intellect, they're interrelated and they're inextricably linked. Now, character is about moral character, and it's about the capacity and the sense of the rightness of your decision to be able to make that decision quickly. I procrastinate. Excuse me, that last sentence is me. I'll try to minimize the commentary, side commentary. The will is about having the strength to execute the decision, and the intellect undergirds it all by giving you the context, the intellectual context, to be able to make the decision. When Marines are aware of how perspectives and experiences shape their thinking, they can better identify assumptions, biases, and other factors that influence learning. Previous experiences, bogey on my 3. You hear them, right? Hopefully they just continue on down the road. I missed the sunset. Or did I? When Marines are aware of how perspectives and experiences shape their thinking, they can better identify assumptions, biases, and other factors that influence learning. Previous experiences are valuable for many reasons, such as providing references to integrate new knowledge, skills, and experiences into memory. Marines learn and fight effectively despite friction, which has been described as the force that makes the apparently easy so difficult. Learning is not always easy. A lack of self-awareness, emotional regulation, humility, time management, or biases can cause friction that makes learning more difficult. Marines overcome this friction and seek self-improvement by better understanding themselves, particularly how our values, ethics, and perspectives influence learning. The second learning principle is to be ready and willing to learn. That's me, always eagerly standing by. Marines have a professional responsibility to learn throughout their careers and should always seek opportunities to learn. Marines take an active role in learning. Marines must take an active Let me try that again. Marines must take an active role in learning, be intellectually curious, and look for new ways to adapt what they have learned to other relevant situations. There are many factors that indicate a, page 1-11, person's willingness and readiness to learn, such as physical, behavioral, social, emotional, and cognitive skills. Additionally, humility, courage, integrity, perseverance, motivation, and discipline are other key qualities that affect learning readiness. Marines increase their learning readiness by having the courage, perseverance, and discipline to continuously seek new professional knowledge, skills, and experiences. A Marine's learning can be facilitated by developing an awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. Bogey coming up on my 9. I need this thing. Check them out. That's obviously not a local. Nope. I have a feeling I know who those people are. Fun fact, that is LA County over there. If I am not mistaken, the far ridge in the distance between the high ridge on the left and the highest ridge on the right, that way back there, that's Ventura County, and this is Kern County. And that's just a thought that crossed my mind. That you, the viewer, would find intellectually stimulating. Let me go on. Marines increase their learning readiness by having the courage, perseverance, and discipline to continuously seek new professional knowledge, skills, and experiences. A Marine's learning can be facilitated by developing an awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. Marines sharpen their intellect by studying how to think better, then applying those skills to improve as learners, leaders, and decision makers. The third learning principle is to understand why you are learning. When Marines understand why they are learning concepts and skills, they better understand the importance of learning to the mission and are more motivated to learn. By understanding the context of learning, Marines are better able to apply concepts and skills to new situations, increasing their competence and adaptability. Unknowns, uncertainty, and disorder will never be eliminated in battle. Information may be unclear, misinterpreted, influenced by the enemy, or communication systems may fail. When Marines understand why they are learning, it enables them to focus on learning the known and adapting to the unfamiliar more quickly and effectively than the enemy. Outlearning the enemy is, therefore, the key to outfighting the enemy. The fourth learning principle is to provide and receive constructive feedback. One cannot learn without feedback. It is critical to learning and developing adaptability. There are two sources of feedback. Intrinsic source, internal. That's your conscience or your intuition or your gut feeling. And extrinsic as opposed to extrinsic. Look, you saw it. Sources. For example, a Marine's own perception that he or she jerked the trigger when shooting a rifle, then adjusting the trigger pull on the next shot would be an example of using intrinsic feedback. In this same example, extrinsic feedback would be a marksmanship instructor identifying the error to the Marine, then demonstrating the proper trigger pull. Both intrinsic and extrinsic feedback are important for learning and developing adaptability. Adaptability is the quality of being able to adjust to new conditions. Marines develop adaptability, when they experience a situation, recognize what is happening, and adjust the response to the new conditions. The process of learning is in itself a form of adaptive behavior and is an essential element of combat effectiveness. Marines adapt to the operational environment to change in their assigned mission to the enemy's adaptive tactics or to changes in the civil component. Again, I'd like to apologize for my very rough, my imperfect, my untrained reading out loud directly from the text. Narration voice, I don't know. You get it. If you are enduring this, or if you made it to this point, then you get it. Maybe you're just a pawn and you're instructed. The process of learning is in itself a form of adaptive behavior and is an essential element of combat effectiveness. Marines adapt to the operational environment, to changes in their assigned mission, to the enemy's adaptive tactics, and to changes in the civil component. Seeking and responding to feedback are critical to effective adaptation. All Marines can learn to become more adaptive. All Marines can learn to become more adaptive through training, education, and self-study. I think I'm just gonna, not I think, I intended only to do one section, one chapter, whichever comes first. The final principle is that learning is purpose-driven to develop professional competence. I think I'm going to add, just to put it in perspective, there can only be one chief. Learning has specific goals and measurable objectives to gauge progress toward developing competencies. Marine learning is team-oriented so that Marines develop the skills and connections to fight collectively, usually as part of a Marine Air-Ground Task Force, MAGTF. Let me slow it down, as if I was reading my unintended target audience. You know, learning for dummies. Marines are challenged with problems that they tackle as teams in order to learn by doing as well as from each other. I'm going to have to start putting in the IEs, everything in parentheses. Marines learning, how do I mess that up? Marine learning is focused on developing professional competence, developing ready Marines and units capable of operational. Oh, wow. Let me try that sentence again. Marine learning is focused on developing professional competence, developing ready Marines and units capable of operating effectively in changing conditions. I could have stated that sentence so much better so that it flowed. That must have been a wheeze. Additionally, Marines study history. Pardon me there, I have to I'm only going to go to this one because dropping fast, and other things. Additionally, Marines study history and the world events to be more prepared to respond to new challenges, such as the increase in globalization and competition for resources. Bear with me here. Effective warfighters adapt to fluid changes in circumstances in order to deal with complex problems and to proactively shape events for an advantage. Marines sometimes conceptualize the enemy and or adversary. Wow. Marines sometimes conceptualize the enemy or an Marines sometimes conceptualize the enemy and or adversary, as a single person or group of people and should be viewed as a complex system. Marines must understand that the enemy or adversary may be comprised of many people, systems, and networks founded on different ideologies. Through purpose-driven learning, Marines develop a variety of competencies to better understand and respond to complex enemy or adversary systems. Learning environments that simulate these complex systems develop Marines' professional competence and encourage adaptation, as well as the ability to outthink enemies or adversaries in changing situations. The human dimension and the science of learning. Conflict is a human phenomena. Understanding human nature helps Marines to understand conflict. Marines prepare for the complexities of each conflict by studying social, economic, political, cultural, environmental, interpersonal, and intrapersonal factors. These factors often exert a greater influence on the character and outcome of war than do factors such as the size of, page 1-14, the enemy formations or their equipment. Marines learn as much as possible about the different human factors, cultures, and perspectives, and Marines learn as much as possible about the different human factors, cultures, perspectives, and ideas that impact operations. Developing self-awareness of the personal factors that can detract from learning, such as hubris, ego, and bias, enables Marines to overcome friction. Marines strive to view situations and information objectively and unemotionally, provide candid feedback to each other, and learn to overcome or mitigate factors that negatively impact preparedness. Violence and danger will always be parts of war. Learning to fight in dangerous conditions despite fear and uncertainty is key to warfighting. Marines of all ranks must understand how the body and mind respond to fear and stress so that they may better control the responses in any situation, including combat. Marines learn how to effectively control stress reactions and fight in dangerous conditions through realistic training, increasing self-awareness, understanding the attributes of war, and increasing mental and physical resilience. For example, Marines learn breathing techniques during marksmanship training to better control how the body's nervous system responds to stress in order to shoot more accurately. The breathing techniques help Marines to control their heart rate, respiration, attention, and muscles under stress, which then increases the accuracy of their fire. Combat can challenge unit cohesion and present Marines with a variety of moral and ethical dilemmas. Marines develop strong mental, moral, spiritual, and ethical understanding because they are as important as physical skills when operating in the violence of combat. Page 1-15. The science of learning encompasses many disciplines, such as neuroscience, psychology, and andragogy. Adult learning, as opposed to pedagogy, right? Learning of children or child learning, children's learning. The human brain is a constantly reorganizing system capable of being shaped and reshaped across an entire lifespan. Each new learning event impacts the brain, regardless of the Marine's age, rank, or level of experience. Therefore, all Marines should understand that challenging experiences enhance the brain and better hone their warfighting capability. Science has also identified that individuals and teams have differences in the way they learn, with varying sensory preferences for learning, competencies, and strengths. These differences are essential components of the learning processes and can be useful knowledge for structuring or engaging in learning events so that learning is more effective. Prior experiences, knowledge, competencies, and perspectives are all unique elements that form the basis for understanding new information. Marines form relevant connections between new information and their prior knowledge. Adult learning involves adapting or modifying the prior relevant information to the specific situation or problem that the Marine seeks to resolve. Understanding the human dimension and science of learning enables Marines to tailor training and education to more effectively build competencies, learn from mistakes, provide effective feedback, and sustain learning. I'm going to go ahead and pause this, upload, and continue until I get to the point where I said I was going to.